Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here again on time. It's a pleasure to me to welcome you today on behalf of all the team. We've had a great preparation session between yesterday to today, and it's a pleasure to see that you've also been active. The harbor is full of posts. The topics for today, it's almost full with topics. Some of them still don't have a name, but if you are listening to me now, please go there and try to edit your name, put your name. If you can't edit, put in brackets that you are a proponent in the comments. But I will go into these details shortly after we start today. So this is just a small warming up. So before we actually start today, we would like to start with a small conversation in small groups of 5 people. So we'd like to invite you to a small wake-up conversation, sharing with each other how you're feeling, how was the day for you, the day for yesterday, how was the night, what were your interesting reflections from yesterday until today, what's on your mind. That's it. So 5 minutes to get together a little bit, get to know. This is a networking event, as you know, towards carbon neutral agriculture. So thank you. And I would like to invite now Zeus, our help desk and the master of the rooms, to create the space for you to meet and interact a little bit before we come back and start our day program. So thank you very much for coming. See you soon. Welcome back, everybody. You're slowly arriving back to the plenary. It's much faster to move in between rooms when we are online. If we would be physically, we would like to create this. Either we would be in a room full of noise with everybody speaking to their partners, and it would be 100 or 80 people speaking at the same time, or we would have to go out and come back again. So this sometimes it's much easier. So this is a very carbon neutral event as nobody is traveling, as you know. So it's a pleasure to be in such a carbon neutral event. I'm just making a little bit of time so until everybody comes back. So it's time for us to really go into the program of today. So thank you all very much for embracing these small talks, waking up a little bit. I hope everybody is feeling relaxed and energized. Maybe we can see the slide of the program of today. I think we have one slide to give you an overview, which basically comes, it's very similar to the slide of yesterday, but it's the second day. So today, as we've mentioned yesterday, is the day of first going into inspiring examples of implementation. We have 2 people today to give us very interesting examples of projects implementing carbon neutral agriculture. Then we're going to create our agenda together based on topics of yesterday. Based on the discussions of yesterday and what we want to discuss today, focusing on what knowledge and innovation do we need to make carbon neutral agriculture a reality until 2030, or for the next 5 years, which would be even better. And then we have a coffee break, and then we start our work in parallel sessions, discussing exactly what we want with the people that we want. And then we come back to plenary with relevant conclusions for all and the joint discussion and some reflections. After this, we have lunch and the day is finished, but the sun is still out there. So it's up to you to do whatever you want with your day. But if you want to continue some discussions with some people, you can still use our rooms for this. Some of our rooms, we'll have 3 rooms open, and you can still use the EIP for your collective meetings if you think that today's morning is not enough. Otherwise, you can use your own means, your own Zoom meetings, Skypes, phone calls, and you can contact with the people through the platform, direct messaging, and also keep on being connected as a network that we are. So maybe now I will share you my screen to show you 2 very interesting things. Let's see if first I'm going to show you something that is not exactly what you want to see, which is the back door of our event, which is the script. But now I'm showing you already what I want to show you, which is the harbor. So if you remember, in the platform, we have a link to this page. I'm going to show you just for you to remember. Here on the left, we have the harbor. If you click it, it will open this very interesting panel, which is being now enriched by you. So there's a lot of content here. So I'm showing you this because not some of you have already included content, but others may have not seen it. So you can come here to see it or to include more content or even comment. Okay, so feel free to do that during the day and even at the end of the day, because this will be used in the report as well. So the most important thing for today, after the two very interesting presentations that we'll have in the morning, will be this moment in which we are going to be together collecting our reflections, knowledge, discussions, insights, problems, solutions on the topic of what knowledge and innovation do we need to go carbon neutral. So I just wanted to show you that mostly all the spaces are full. We have the bar, the coffee shop, the garden, the forest, the lake, the meadow, the oak tree, the orchard, the pasture, the river, but there's still the stables open. So basically there's only one place free. But I have to remember you that some of you did not put the names on the proposal, and only the proposals that have the name will be actually convening people. So you will have to present your topic. For example, the first one says use of remote sensing in agriculture. So who is proposing this topic? You'll have to write here your name. Now we have it. Monica, thank you. You'll have to write here your name. And then when we are creating the agenda or reviewing the agenda, you have to present the topic, okay? And only after this will the people be able to say that they want to participate in. So this was just a revision of this process. So you have until the exact moment to do so. Now it's time for us to start our inspiring moment of the day, which is basically coming back to these two inspiration projects. So to do this, I would like to invite Anna again, Ana Marta Paz, our dear coordinator, expert on the topic, to welcome our speakers, present them, and give the momentum for the next presentations. Anna, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much for the presentation. Good morning, dear participants. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did the day yesterday. I came home full of thoughts and wonders, and I'm really willing to keep discussing today. So as today is focused on boosting implementation, we invited two speakers to tell us about projects that focus on implementation of carbon neutral agriculture. So you see here our two speakers. They will be Juuso Joona from Finland, and he will talk about the Carbon Action Platform. And then we will hear Frankie Koopman from Belgium, who is going to present the Interreg project, carbon farming. So we will start with Juuso, and he's a farm manager himself at an annual crops farm in Finland. And he is also a board member at this Carbon Action Platform, which actually is not a project, but it's a meeting point for several projects. And the idea is to facilitate cooperation among these projects, among other things. So I welcome Juuso, and he will tell us everything about it.
Sorry, Anna, just before we start, and sorry, Juuso, just remember everybody that you can, now it's a time for you to write questions. So you can write questions in the chat, just like we did yesterday. And then after this, Anna will facilitate this process of questions and answers to Juuso. Okay, thank you very much.
Precisely. Juuso, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Juuso Joona. I'm a regional farmer from southeast Finland. Today I'm gonna tell you how we are enabling carbon farming on the Carbon Action platform. But first, let's take a short look at our farm in Juuso Joona. On our friendly farm, we are producing organic food and seed crops on 120 hectares. Regenerative means, for example, that while producing food, we are increasing soil carbon stocks and biodiversity. Also, knowledge is one of our main outcomes, and we are participating in several research projects, such as soil diver agri and live carbon farming schemes. And in this presentation, I will introduce you Carbon Action platform, where I am as an educator and a member of the board. First, the limiting factors. Limiting factors of carbon farming that we have recognized during our work. I see farmers' knowledge most limiting factor, and that is not a fault of a farmer, but of a system that hasn't enough supported farmer to take care of the soil and biology. Carbon farming doesn't have to be something fancy and new. Instead, it is a holistic approach to farming and soil. To realize the effect of carbon farming, changes in soil carbon stock should be monitored and verified. The challenge is first that the changes are very small compared to the stock, typically below 1% per year. Secondly, the spatial variation can be very high. And farmers need to prioritize their profitability, and according to that, also carbon farming should be economically feasible. It may need some investments in the beginning, and introducing the new methods, risks can be higher than in conventional farming. And to solve these limiting factors, we have launched a Carbon Action platform 2018 to develop agricultural soil carbon sequestration, its methods and monitoring. Today, platform consists of 17 separate research projects that are funded from various sources, and platform includes also international collaborations, and also decision makers and companies are involved. In the core of the Carbon Action, we have approximately 100 Finnish pilot farms who are trialing different carbon farming methods and learning together. These farms are producing data for soil carbon measurement and modeling development. Farmers have been educated by top scientists and educators, and they are learning in the small groups from their peers. And especially peer-to-peer learning has been found very effective in learning new farming methods among farmers. One of the aims of the Carbon Action platform is to develop methods to reliably estimate the soil organic carbon stock changes, which enables monetizing carbon sequestration. A research group coordinated by the Finnish Meteorological Institute is currently developing a carbon calculator, which is described here. It is using several technologies to measure and model carbon to produce reliable results. Also, the economics of the carbon farming is studied on our platform. Carbon markets and schemes are studied, especially in a live funded project where I'm also attended. But we already know that many carbon farming practices are multi-beneficial. Carbon sequestration can lead to decreasing nutrient loading, improving biodiversity, and improved resilience of the farming. Taking into account the current climate and biodiversity crisis, carbon farming should be incentivized in the next common agricultural policy period. One example which is suitable to new eco-schemes program are cover crops that could be supported based on results and monitored via Sentinel-2 satellite. Very effective, both economically and from the view of carbon sequestration. Here we can see pictures from our farm from the last October, and you can see that it's very easily seen from those Sentinel-2 imagery different soil covers and crop covers. And have to mention that this plowed bare field is our neighbor's field. In conclusion, to improve farmers' knowledge, advisory and education is needed. Different kinds of trials and pilots ease the adaptation of new practices. To develop monitoring, hard science is needed, but it is most efficiently carried out participating farmers. We've noticed that this benefits both the farmers and the scientists. For the society, it is best to adapt carbon farming immediately, and at least I don't know any more efficient tool to do that than to target subsidies to enhance carbon farming. Crunch time is at hand, referring to ongoing CAP negotiations and the design of the national strategic plans. So I think we should go on and tell the decision makers what should be done. Thank you very much for your interest. I'm open to discussion.
Well, we thank you, Juuso, for this wonderful presentation. Again, I invite participants to start writing their questions to Juuso and also to our next speaker on the chat on the platform, and I will post them to them at the end of the presentations. So our next speaker is Frankie Koopman, and he is involved in an Interreg project, the carbon farming, which includes regions in Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, and Norway. So I pass the words directly to Frankie.
Hello, I'm Frankie Koopman. I'm an agricultural advisor for EIP-AGRI. That's a practical research center in Belgium. I want to tell you something about our project, North Sea Region project Carbon Farming. Carbon farming basically means to return and focus on the soil fertility, and this is what we have done within our North Sea Region project. The focus is on potential of plants to reduce and store atmospheric CO2 and the role of the soils as carbon sink. To pursue this path, farmers need to reintegrate and maintain appropriate measures in their production. Therefore, first, a general list of 14 accepted agricultural measures to store carbon and corresponding carbon sequestration is made up by the different project partners in the EU region. Out of that, a regional promising top 5 is selected, taking into account which topic can easily be done by the farmers and also taking into account which measure can contribute a lot. By example, because there's a lot of surface of a certain crop in that region. This is turned into practical info sheets as seen on the right of the screen. The problem is that a lot of the agriculture measures cannot be seen by human eye. Therefore, within the project, we wanted to make the measures more visible by making fact sheets, video, interviews, and so on. This can be found on the EIP-AGRI website in Dutch and English. For example, also a storyboard about carbon farming, or more general information in English is available on the North Sea Region website. As carbon content in the soil is something where changes can be measured over long term, we are approaching it in the project by reporting the effort and not only the measure of the result. By this, also farmers who are already doing it well are recognized to keep up the good work. Within the project, we want to avoid that good practices will become obligatory. Therefore, a financial stimulus to keep up good work and stimulate small adaptation in daily work. The first showcase carried out in Belgium is located in the municipality of Beernem. This municipality has its own land and farmers can rent it for free if they apply carbon farming techniques. By this, the municipality can compensate the emission of several cars of the municipality by taking carbon sequestration measures on a small 10 hectares. By doing this, almost 5 tons of carbon is yearly sequestrated in the soil. A link to the video, part in English and part in Dutch, is mentioned on the screen. It becomes increasingly clear which carbon techniques have been the biggest potential of improving carbon sequestration on agricultural soils, and this potential and suitability of the different techniques is region-specific. To put these techniques successfully into practice, significant return on investment has to be guaranteed for farmers and other stakeholders investing time and money in these techniques. Therefore, economic and ecological viable business models are indispensable. The results of an elaborated study identifying existing business models and that can be used as an example and source of inspiration for future similar initiatives can be found here. I will give a short summary of the 4 categories of business models identified. First, we have models within the agri-food chain, often enterprises from within the agri-food sector, such as processors of milk and vegetables, retailers, distributors, and so on, are the ones taking initiative to make their business model sustainable. To achieve this, they are starting cooperatives with farmers applying successful carbon sequestration techniques. Companies can use this approach in a convenient way in their marketing campaigns, for example, by mentioning it on the packaging of their products. In this way, they illustrate to their consumers how they can contributing to the climate change challenge the agri-food sector is facing, and at the same time, they increase the awareness among consumers concerning the need for more sustainable food production. The added value of their products can then partly flows to the farmers receiving a higher price for their products or receiving a direct payment for their additional efforts. Second models outside the agri-food chain, more and more companies and organizations focus on climate and sustainability in their business model. These are not necessarily active within the agri-food sector itself. A lot of them are already increasing their efforts in terms of sustainability, but sometimes it's impossible for them to become climate neutral due to the individual emissions. Some of these companies are looking for alternatives to compensate of their emissions. Possibilities and endless and depends on the creativity of the company. A commonly applied model these days is, for example, planting trees or investing in more sustainable energy production use and developing countries. However, there are also opportunities on the local scale within the agri-food sector. Companies can make a carbon agreement with the farmer and invest in the ways for the farmer to take actions in sequestration carbon, such as soil enhancement techniques. In return, the company is allowed to claim the additionally sequestrated carbon. Third are models at farm level. Farmers can also take initiatives to make their products more sustainable by themselves without involvement of any other stakeholder. In most cases, farmers focus on the story behind their products, and they are selling their labeled products through short chain marketing. By openly communicating on their sustainable farming techniques towards their customers, they count on the increasing willingness of a consumer to pay a little extra for their sustainable products. A classic and generally known example of such a business model is the organic label. And finally, there are models including government institutions. Climate mitigation and adaptation is high on the agenda of national and regional governments. Also, a lot of municipalities, for example, from BNM, also province, cities, and so on, are developing climate action plans to compensate their emissions. The application of the carbon farming is therefore often actively promoted by government institutions. Two main strategies can be defined. First, when proven beneficial for the society and environment, government can pay farmers directly for the ecosystem services they are providing as a consequence of their sustainable farming techniques. Second, systems where the government is intervening in carbon credits trading and the follow-up of the efforts by farmers in terms of carbon storage are another viable option. These systems allow farmers to design their own projects aiming at increasing carbon storage. Following approval of their project, farmers can then receive carbon credits, which they can sell to companies or organizations looking for alternative ways to compensate for their carbon emissions. In both cases, government would be promoting the implementation of the sustainable carbon sequestration techniques in modern farming. Another interesting route to be explored for the future is the common agricultural policy that can create incentives for farmers through legislation or funding, stimulating carbon sequestration techniques. The policy will play a fundamental role in developing a fully sustainable agricultural sector that supports, for example, the environmental care and climate change actions. The drivers and incentives that may contribute to foster the adoption of practices on carbon neutral agriculture are first creating support in the agricultural sector. Farmers have to be convinced that carbon farming techniques are good initiatives for their soils and that they can solve bigger emission problems. Besides farmers, also politicians have to be convinced that by stimulating legislation, farmers are be willing to take carbon farming measures. In the project, we seek for the pioneers who are willing to take those measures on their fields, and in collaboration with our research station in EIP-AGRI, we are demonstrating the good practices. The first steps are taken to contribute a role to the farmer. Here it's important to communicate that daily practices are relevant to store carbon in the soil. For the civilian, we have to show that not only trees are carbon stockage, but also good agricultural practices can contribute to reduce the CO2 amounts. By setting up the first showcases, interests are rising to set up a framework where farmers have a significant role in the carbon farming story, and also regional legislation will have to follow the current actual practices. Thank you a lot for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Frankie, for your presentation. We really have a lot of questions to both speakers now. I will try to choose maybe some of the questions that were really direct. And we'll start with you. So, for instance, Eduardo Costantini is asking if you have any problem with excess of organic matter in the soil or peat accumulation?
Yes, thank you. In Finland, we have 10% of our agricultural soils, peat soils, and they are producing half of the whole agricultural sector's greenhouse gas emissions. So they are really crucial. And on the peat soils, we have to concentrate on decreasing the emissions. We cannot, at the same time, while producing food, we cannot increase the carbon sequestration. Of course, the paludiculture, for example, or other soil uses are possible, but maybe not food production anymore. But that's something to consider.
Okay, thank you. Another question, which I think is also quite straightforward. Susie Robinson is asking regarding the sampling that you were mentioning. How resource intensive is it? Do you think it's something that could be easily scaled up?
Yes, it is labor intensive, and always sampling is the biggest source of error in the analytics. So it should be proceeded carefully. And like I mentioned, that the spatial variation of the soil carbon stocks and concentrations can be very high also in one plot, in one field. So it takes a lot of sampling to have accurate results of soil carbon. And in research and science, it's still possible to take a lot of samples. And in our pilot farming approach, it helps that we have more than 100 pilot farms who are working in small areas with paired setup. So they have a control field and trial field, and comparing the results between these. And with this kind of setup, we can decrease the variation of the results. But in practice, in future carbon farming schemes, we cannot just only rely on sampling because of the labor-intensive method and the high costs. So the way we are developing our carbon calculator is that there are several proxies, for example, satellite imaginary eddy covariance flux tower measurements, and we are developing a model that it's working, for example, like a weather forecast, that we are not measuring the state of the weather or the carbon stocks in every place, but we have enough measurement places that we can model then the results in between these. So this is the way to make it economically feasible.
And as I understand, maybe you also have this part where the sampling is really intensive, and maybe you can do a benchmark to include in your tool later to upscale.
Yeah, that's important. Of course, in every place, it's important to take the initial sample to have the data of the soil type and the initial carbon content. And in our pilot farms, there's 20 intensive studied farms where we are taking samples to the 1 meter depth, 1 meter course to study deep soil carbon sequestration as well. And this kind of model we are developing is all the time verified and improved with taking samples to improve the modeling.
Okay, let's see if I guess we have time for one more questions. We have several more, but like yesterday, we will forward them to you later, and we will make them available. But there is a question from Hiri here. She's asking, from your own experience, how do you feel is the state of knowledge of Finnish farmers today about the carbon farming, and do you think if they have enough knowledge and support to boost this in the short period, as you mentioned, it's really important?
I think we do have very sharp group of forerunners from our 50,000 farmers in Finland that are leading this carbon farming, and the interest towards our carbon action platform and the pilot farm trials was enormous. So we had to set up a carbon action club, which includes nowadays already some 2,000 participants and farmers who are reaching to this information. So maybe I would conclude that currently the group is not that big yet, but it's increasing very rapidly currently, because farmers are seeing that these are the solutions what they can use to improve their productivity, profitability, and also welfare. We are seeing carbon farming really holistically. It's also holistic management of their farm and leading of the farm. So it's not just on the soil, but it's considering production system, crop rotations, and so on.
Okay, Juuso, this was really interesting. We really hope to keep talking to you during the rest of this morning, and also afterwards. We had several other questions here. I think I should start having some questions from Frankie, but I think he is gone at this moment. So maybe I'll just go for another one that came up here from different people about the cover crops and catch crops. Oh, no. If still Juuso can answer to that very quickly, because people are always wondering how do you manage with that in the north of Europe. So if you can really use them as profitable crops, for instance?
Well, up here, our growing season is very short. It begins in the beginning of the May and it ends in September. So what is important that our cover crops are undersown under the yielding crop. And then when we are harvesting, or already when the cereals, for example, or the yield crop is ripening, they're already coming in or up those cover crops. And then we could have a proper growing season still September, October. and then we hopefully have snow and frost. But still, we have a lot of photosynthesizing days and weeks to yield and harvest with cover crops.
Okay, thank you, Frankie. So now I have.
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I have also quite some questions for you. One of them was if the project has some strategy to scale up the business models that you mentioned.
Yes. So within the project, we started to identify the different models that are possible to store carbon in agriculture. So we identified the 4 ones, and now on this moment, we have still 1 year left in the project, but also later on, we try to use those models to have showcases, to have practical examples to start up. And by that, we let them grow. So the 4 models we identified within the project are just the basis. And when we have specific cases, we adapt, we do some small adaptations to the models to use them to carry out some practical issues.
Okay, then I have actually different people were asking me, because you were mentioning about the carbon sequestration measures, actually. So if you could tell us a little bit more about which measures you were referring to. We have 2 questions about it.
Yeah, so we have an extended list of 40 measures, but I pick out the 5 most important ones. We also have now in the showcases in Belgium. The use of cover crops is an important one, and also undersowing of grass in maize is an important one, where we have a lot of trials on. A second measure is extending the crop rotation. Here in Belgium, often we have some severe crop rotations, by example, year after year maize, and we try to have 1 out of the 3 years another crop, for example, winter wheat or something, so that we only have 2 years of maize and 1 year winter wheat, followed also by a cover crop. The third important one is the use of stable manure. Where we can, we promote to use that. It's also very important that we can valorize the stable manure we have and use it a lot of on our soils. And then I think those are the most, or the 3 most important ones. Then beside that, we still have the grass management. By that, you can have a lot of different examples. When we have the grazing of cows on it, we try to reduce the amount of cows and rotational grazing. And when we have only the mowing, or putting arable land into grassland, that's also a big gain for to store carbon in the soil. So that's also important for Flanders. And the last one is the use of compost. So that's also an important product. But since we have a lot of manure and also the liquid version of it, we have a lot of pressure to use those products, so we have to stimulate also to use the composts in Flanders. So I think that those are the 5 most important ones. The other ones, you can have an overview on it on the website of the North Sea Region Project, Carbon Farming. There you have it all explained in detail.
Good, thank you. This is very nice to get some more specific insights in some of these practices. We had also quite different questions about your the accounting method or the certification method that you were proposing. I think I will try to pose 2 of them, which are related to it. One is from Anna Frenlin Larsen, and she's asking if the payments are based on the climate performance, what methodology do you apply for the monitoring, the reporting, the verification? And Cecilia Hermansson, she's asking, how do you avoid the double counting for the carbon credits? That is, that not both the farmers and the companies buying the credits are accounted for them.
Yeah. So I have to say here in Flanders, we have only the start up of a certain method. So 2 years ago, nobody was thinking about storing garbage in the soil and getting a payment for that. So we try to set up some different showcase, and the first one that's actually running also within the time of the project. There we have the issue that we can't measure any differences in the soil in short term. So only in 3 years we can't measure anything. So now we are getting the reward on it by the incentive. So if the farmers are taking the measures, the payment is following by taking the measures, and not only on the carbon content. The difference of the carbon content we can measure in the soil, because the time period is too small. I won't say that we will do it. We will do it, but now we don't have the time for it. So we had a short time to only reward on the changes, because it's only 2 years. So I have to say that the carbon credits on this moment, a viable system in Flanders does not exist yet. We are building on it. So we have put the first steps, and we have to build up coming years to have a more stable and also a valid system to, on one part, have measures into the soil, and on the other hand also have the legislation about CO2. Yeah, so the amount of CO2 that you can store, how we can pay the efforts on that. So now in Flanders we only have the startup, and we are taking steps to have more system on it.
Okay, thank you. That was actually another question we had from Ari. He was asking how far were you on this process. Well, after your explanation, we had another question on the practices. What's your knowledge about the practices related to reducing the intensity of soil tillage in this part of Europe? I guess.
Yeah, so we used international literature because there's a lot of research done on those topics, and we collected that. And out of that, we made a resume. What is the exact implementation from those measures into our region? So we made a calculation from the general measures in Europe, I will say, and we transformed that into local practices. So we have a translation of the international literature to our local conditions, I will say.
Okay, thank you, Frankie. Thank you, Juuso, for your answers. Our time, we got some 5 extra minutes for us for the questions and answers, but we will have to proceed now.
Yes, thank you very much, Anna. It's been spectacular. So it's time for us to go. Thank you very much for the speakers. It's time for us to go to the next session. Ina, take us away. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. I hope you had this great 10 seconds to breathe between this session of being inspired and reflecting with questions and answers, to now changing to this moment where we are all the main actors in the room, and we are going to collectively build knowledge. So we want to know what knowledge and innovation do we need, but again, coming back from yesterday and to go into this moment in which we are going to start our discussions, I would like to invite again Anna to just again once more remember us, anchor us on what are we here going to discuss in this morning today. What's the topic? What do we
Well,
want?
it's true. I think we have, do we have a slide with that?
Yeah, we have.
So just to remind you, yesterday Andre told us how nice this would be because we could talk about whatever we would like, what we would most like to talk about. But I would just like to remind you of our mobilizing question, which was telling us the focus would be on what knowledge and innovation do we need to make carbon neutral agriculture in 5 years, so in a rather short time period. So knowledge and innovation issues would be the focus here. And actually yesterday we had a lot of different cues on towards these needs and wishes. For instance, I remember someone mentioned if the demand side would be included in the discussions in this workshop. This could be definitely a topic to be included here. The business models, the demand side. Or for instance, another very interesting topic that came yesterday was about the development of a standard methodology and core questions such as should emissions be measured per unit production or per area. And I saw that there is already some proposed topic in this area. I hope the host put his name there or her name there. So these are just examples of issues related to knowledge and innovation that could help us and lead us to a wide implementation in the short term.
Okay.
So I guess this is it.
Thank you very much, and I think it's very clear. So we're not going to exclude topics unless we don't have enough rooms for all of them. So if there's a lot of topics and there's not room for all of them, then we will keep focusing on the ones that are in the main question, and the other ones can be dealt afterwards. But if we have space and time, then it's okay. So just the slides, maybe we can see again the slides to see the process again, just to revise, even though I think you've all understood because I explained yesterday. So for today, we're using the principles of the open space technology in our parallel sessions. So we're going to have 12 parallel sessions, and we want to have the most relevant conversations with whoever comes is the right people. And what happens is the only thing that could have happened. So there's no big expectations except that we have to go carbon neutral, and this is a big expectation. Whenever it starts is the right time. So let's try to start at the right time, but you can also have other conversations. If the meeting can start on time and sooner, and another meeting can start eventually after that. But the rooms, like I've told you before, some of them will remain open in the afternoon, and I can tell it, I think, right away, if I'm not mistaken. So in the afternoon, we'll have the coffee shop, the garden, and the lake. These 3 rooms will be open in the afternoon. So you already know that if you want to continue conversations, you can use these 3 rooms. So the next slide shows us again what is the law of 2 feet, meaning that you have to start in the conversation that you choose in the beginning, that you will see now how it's going to happen. You have to put a like or a comment so that we know how many people is into each room. But then you can move in between rooms if you feel you're not contributing or learning, okay? The objective is not only to learn, it's also to contribute. And the objective is not to make room tourism, checking out what's happening in other rooms, is to actually choose one and be there and have a great conversation. But if it's not relevant, then you're free to move, and that should not harm any feelings, okay? So we hope we have great conversations. In the next slide is just the process again. So we ask you, what do you really want to talk about? To place it in a room in the topics of Padlet that we've already shown you. And after that, we all have to choose to which rooms we want to go. And the next slide is basically setting up clearly these steps. So first, we are now, after I finish with this slide, I'm going to show you the Padlet, and I'm going to ask you, the 12 people that have already, and thank you for that, presented topics for the parallel sessions of today. I'm going to ask you to present your topic. You have around 1 minute to present the title and the relevance of the topic and why you want to discuss it today. Okay, we go around, we listen to the 12 people, and then after this, I'm going to ask everybody to go to this Padlet again and put a like. You can only put one like, okay? Not a like in all of those that you like. Today you can only like one, which is, let's say, a sign of I'm going to this one. Instead of putting a like, you can also put your name. But don't do both, otherwise we don't know how many people we are. Okay, so I'm going to share you my screen, and I'm going to start with the EIP platform, just for those that still didn't get it. On the left panel, we have several links, and one of them is the topics for day 2. It has this pencil, you see? So if you click here, this is the topics for the parallel that we're having for today, and it will open this link of Padlet here that I will also put in the chat for all of you that may have any issue through the platform. So this link here, we have the 12 rooms. We have the bar, the coffee shop, the garden, the forest, the lake, the meadow, the oak tree, the orchard, the pasture, the river, the stables, the yard, and that's it. So you see that all of them are really already filled in. So thank you very much for that. Even though we have 1 or 2 without names. Which ones do we have without names? I think it's just the coffee shop and the garden. So in the bar, we have one topic here, which is what impact will have the new fertilizer regulation. I already moved this to the yard, so I'm going to delete this one here, okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now entering this moment in which we are going to collectively build the agenda for today. As you know, we will have 1 hour of discussion, and the person that proposes the discussion will be responsible for hosting this session. We will have one facilitator in the room to help you in case there's a lot of people. And you have to make sure that you report what's happening. So I'm going to show you very quickly here the report. This is the link that you can find in the breakout session. The facilitator will show you the link, but you can also find the link here, for example, in the bar. You can find here below the link. But coming back to the essential, the reporting. So it's very simple, the reporting. We don't have any structure for you because basically we want you to talk about what is relevant. You can talk about what you need, for example, to find out wishes, dreams, or goals inside that question, what needs to be done, what can be done, what you don't know. So you discuss about what is relevant for you, but there is something important. You have to fill in this report template. The title of the room name is already there. Then you have to put the title of the workshop. In this case, for example, if the bar, the title, if this remains after we review the agenda together, will be use of remote sensing in agriculture. So you would write here, use of remote sensing in agriculture. The topic host, which would be Monica, who was present. So you write here the names of all the people that were present. And below, you basically write what was discussed and what were the main conclusions. So you'll have to present this in plenary in 2 minutes after the session, okay? If you are the host, you don't have to be the person writing this down. You just have to make sure that somebody writes this down. So somebody from your group that is having the meeting with you will have to write this down, okay? It can be you, it can be the facilitator, it can be somebody from the group. That's what we suggest and propose. And that's it. So it's going to be very easy. Basically, we just want to know what happened in your conversation, okay? Remember that if the time is not enough, you can continue afterwards in the afternoon or another day. You can continue to work together. Life goes on beyond this workshop, but please make this report so that for today we can harvest. Okay, we already have only one topic missing the name. So I ask you to breathe in. Let's take a few seconds to breathe in. And to remember that you want only to present the essential of what you want to discuss. So something like 1 minute, okay? Speak from your whole body and presence, not from your mind explaining thousands of things. Just explain the essence of what you want to talk about. And this will probably work better in attracting everybody to your conversation, okay? So let's take a few seconds to think a little bit, and I will start then calling people by the room, okay? Okay, a few seconds. Okay, let's start from the bar. Monica, can you present your topic for today?
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm working as a statistician, so I'm very interested in indicators and how we can support agriculture with the data. And we face a lot of problem with collecting data on paper-based, and how we can then work with that, and how we can support the politics, not the politicians, but the politics to make a right decision or the right legislation. And I know that during these ages.
Sorry, Monica, can I interrupt you?
Sorry, yes.
Yes, you have to do a different presentation. You have to start. You start by saying the title of of this meeting is, okay?
Okay.
And then, yes, you say the title of this meeting is use of remote sensing in agriculture.
Okay, yes.
And then you say, I want to talk about this because, and you take maximum 1 minute, and that's it. Okay.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, I didn't know.
Okay.
Structure. Okay, so the title is remote sensing in agriculture. I would like to talk about the barriers and the usefulness of using that, and I would like to invite those people who would like to help us to find out the best way how we can use this, and how we can overcome the barriers of using the remote sensing in helping agriculture.
Okay, thank you very much. That was perfect.
Sorry.
Thank you, Monica. No,
I came from too
You were
far.
the first one. You were the first one. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So let's hear from the coffee shop and the elephant in the room. Knut.
This is Knut here. The elephant in the room, the headline, why is all this not mentioned in the farm to fork strategy? The use of gene technology and other, how do we avoid protectionism and other taboo? And this with protectionism is in case we put a carbon tax on whatever we import to EU. I mean, are we then starting a protectionism again? So it's a little bit a political room.
Okay, thank you very much, Knut. That was very clear. So there is somebody proposing a topic now on the coffee shop below, but it doesn't have a name. So until it doesn't have a name, I'll not give you a voice. But if you put your name, I'll give you a voice. Okay. So in the garden, we need a name here. It seems to be Kurt Sannen, but it's not clear. Is it? Are you here present, Kurt?
Yes, I didn't know where to put my name. Everything's so difficult, this online features. But the title is, we need new business models to reward farming systems which are benefit for climate change, but also for other ecosystem services like biodiversity, nitrogen, and so on. Why do we need this discussion? Because this is very important. it's the economy, stupid, said Bill Clinton, and he won the elections. And it's true, it's about the economy. We need economical innovation, not only technological, expensive innovation, but economic innovation about how can farmers have more income by preserving our planet. And we need to look which are the difficulties to develop these new business models, which are potential new business models, but we also have to discuss not only the microeconomic level, but the macroeconomic level. How is economical policy promoting these new business models or preventing them to happen?
Okay, super clear. Thank you very much, Kurt. So let's hear from the forests. Harry.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The forest is about moving towards a carbon neutral intensive livestock fast. So yesterday we discussed what if we had time towards 2050, but now we're going to talk about what if we need to go carbon neutral really fast. And then you can talk about what is possible with innovation, techniques. Do we need system change, and how does it look like, and how do we change the system? How do we help farmers with it? And how about the economics and the business models of doing so? Because it's a very challenging, of course, within 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Super clear. Thank you very much, Harry. So let's hear from the lake. Mateusz. No, Juuso, sorry. Juuso.
Yeah. The title is How to Implement Carbon Farming in Agricultural Policy. In its 7-year period, European Common Agricultural Policy is pouring some 370 billion euros to agriculture. So if that is not a steering force, what is? EU CAP is currently under renovation, and it's still possible to have impact on what is it supporting. Commission has launched quite an ambitious frame, but Parliament and minister negotiations have dewatered that a lot. And currently, and it still looks that we are continuing supporting very degenerative agriculture with high direct payments and very little stress on incentivizing environmental practices. So this is, in my opinion, a limiting factor, and I would like to hear a discussion of possibilities to implement carbon farming and its practices to CAP. Thank you. Hope to see you there.
Thank you very much, Juuso. It's very clear. In the meadow, I think it's Carla Scotti. Carla, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you listen to me?
Yes.
Okay, this is my thing. Okay, it's possible to value carbon sequestration in the soil, but normally the tools that are used to assess a life cycle assessment generally don't take in consideration the carbon sequestration in the soil. It is possible to connect these. Why? Because I think it's important to enhance the role of the agricultural system in the management of the territory, including mountains and hills. And it is essential to enhance the important role of the soil management and its direct effect on carbon sequestration.
Okay, thank you very much. Perfect in timing as well, and very clear. Thank you very much, Carla. So let's see, under the oak tree, there is another conversation. Mr. or Madame Sire, I don't know, sorry.
Yeah, that's me. And the topic is about the carbon neutrality tools. There are certain methods that scientists are using to assess these carbon emissions and make kind of balances. But there are some limitations to use the tools by farmers. So that is the question, whether farmers need a simplified tool and should it be kind of in each country separate because it should consider the local conditions, or should it be Europe-wide provided by Commission? And do you need this kind of tools, and how should they be kind of should they be very complicated or sufficiently easy to use for using each farmer? So that is the discussion I would like to have. Thank you.
Thank you. It was very clear. Thank you very much. So let's hear from the orchard. I think it's Corina.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to show the importance of the orchards in the South Europe, in particular the Mediterranean region. I found that orchards, so they are mainly formed by these perennial fruit trees and possibly the cover crops, either in the interrow or in the row spacing. So this system is probably very important to sequester carbon. So there are no data, there are no relevant data on the potential of this ecosystem to sequester carbon, either in the tree itself or the interrow spacing and the soil. And the particular factors involved are plant species, the cover crops, the pruning effect, fertilization, and irrigation. Irrigation is also a gap, and it is a challenge, for instance, in Portugal, due to this climate change. So the reduction of rainfall and water, so water is becoming scarce. So how these factors can interact and potentiate the carbon sequestration. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I forgot to mention about the possible importance of rootstocks in this system.
Okay, thank you very much. It was very clear. So let's hear from the pastor, Jacopo. Jacopo had 3 things to propose. He had to choose one.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. So, because we saw yesterday, especially in my discussion group, that a correct management of like an extensive farming system are good to mitigate climate change. So, like the presence of animals within the agro-ecosystem is something to promote. And but today, official animal welfare like evaluation system seems to promote intensive farming systems only, and so they are very distant from this this soil animal bond that we will like to promote in the right way. So I think we need an animal-based animal welfare assessment that is a system that can be fit for pasture-based farms, also to be in line with cap regulation and subsidies for farmers. But okay, so but I love to participate also in other rooms, so please don't pick my topic.
We cannot do that. No, but we can review the agenda and join topics if you think it's relevant. Okay, do you want by now to eliminate yours and join in another one, or you want to keep it?
I don't know.
You have to make a decision now, because you have a few moments to think. So let's hear from the river. Thank you very much, Jacopo. From the river, Anna, nice to see you again.
Yes, hi, Andrea. Hey, everybody. Well, I have the same problem as Jacopo. I want to be in other areas also, because I'm just going to show you what we've done as a spin-off from a Life Montado DAP, where Andres is also a partner. Okay, and we've seen that we can also use the water surfaces as for mitigation and for climate change, for agricultural carbon neutral. So we can do that with cork. We can depurate our water. We can have fodder for agro pastoral systems for the cattle. And it's also for wild as a refuge for biodiversity and for wild animals. And also for golf clubs, and it's incredible. It's a biosecurity system. Okay, if animal falls into the water, this should be more than in the lake than in the river anyway. Okay, it's a great tool we found. So that's, yeah, you just seen it. I can move to another area now. Okay.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Anna. Afterwards, please turn on a light because you look very dark. It looks like you are behind the sunset, in front of the sunset. So thank you, but thank you very much for your presentation. So let's hear from the stables. Zoltan.
Sorry, Andrea. We have a message from Zoltan that he lost the connection for a while, so he's not now available for presenting. Maybe join a bit later.
So maybe we can look at the yard. John.
So my title is "If you can't measure, you can't manage." I'm a farmer, an innovative farmer. I want to understand where I am on my journey to carbon neutrality. I want to know what my emissions are. I want to know my carbon stocks in my soils, my carbon stock in my trees, my hedges. And by doing that, I believe I will be better informed and I can make better quality decisions to accelerate my role as a farm manager to deliver carbon neutrality. I don't manage my neighbour's ground, I manage my farm, and I want to know how to do my job better to deliver carbon neutrality.
Okay, thank you very much. Very clear as well. So I don't know if Zoltan is already here. No, he isn't. Huh? If you are here, Zoltan, it's your time. Otherwise, there's still here another topic that somebody put, which is the need for an EU-wide software in carbon budgeting, but it doesn't have a name. Does the person that proposed this topic has a name and wants to present it as a possible meeting for today? No? Okay. So let's start then. I'm going to share again my screen. I was thinking of how we're going to do this, but now it's clear to me again as I was making my own reflection. So everybody, you've read, listened to all the presentations. I'm going to consider this need for an EU-wide software just a comment, which is not related to the thing above, but it's just going to stay there. So we have 12 presentations. One of them is still not presented by one person, which is the stables by Zoltan. But before we review the agenda and try to reorganize, I'm going to ask you, some of you have already done this, I'm going to ask you to put a like in only one of the rooms, okay? If you've placed a like in more than one, go back and unclick it, okay? So put a like in the room that you would like to be in today and start the conversation, okay? So I'm going to give you a few moments for this. If some of you have any difficulties in accessing, now it's the time to say so, but you should be able to join through the platform and find the link or the link in the chat in the Zoom that I also put. So it should be very easy. So now I'm going to give you a couple of minutes for everybody to put one like only in the meeting that you would like, okay? Maybe we can listen to some sounds, landscape sounds while we do this. Okay, I think it's time we go, and we're going to finish setting the agenda and going for the day. Okay, so there are still some rooms that don't have any participants, like the use of remote sensing, the coffee shop. There is one or two that have a few, like the orchard and the pasture and the river and the stables. But if we add up all these likes, we have 5, 6, 9, 20, 30, 40, 50, so something like 60 likes here. So not everybody did the like. Let's see, probably you are going to some rooms other than, there's more people than the like. So anyway,
I cannot escape.
You cannot escape. So if you cannot escape, do a double click or ask the help desk for some support, okay? So very soon we are going into a coffee break, and after the coffee break, we are going into these meetings that they are going to be hosted by the people here. So before we do that, let's review the agenda. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment to the agenda, saying namely that I don't have any participants in the room, I'm going to cancel my meeting, or I'm going to be there anyway? Do remember that if you're alone, you can still go to your meeting. You can be there alone. You can write the reports with your main ideas, and you can then go to another meeting. Okay, so that can still happen. You're not forced to cancel it. So my question now is: does anybody who would like to comment? Anything that could be joined? Everything is okay.
Andre, sorry, I'm Jacopo.
Go ahead.
I would like to share my idea with people. I'm here for that. I think it's better for everybody. So I think I can move my idea on the garden, and that is, I think we can include in that topic.
Okay.
If you agree.
Does the garden agree? Kurt, you're okay with that?
That's okay.
Yeah? Okay. So these two meetings will be joined. Any more?
We have some question on the chat, Andre.
I cannot see the chat.
Okay, so if I can read them. If nobody join my room, can I leave and join another room?
Yes, you can leave and join another room, but before you do that, write your ideas in the report and then go. Okay? Unless you want to cancel the room right away. But it's better that you host it because some people may join in. You wait 5 minutes, you write your own ideas, and then you go. Okay? Any more?
I've got one. Sorry, I don't. Can you hear me? I've got one suggestion, which is to measure. You've got the yard, and you've also got another one to do with carbon measuring, and I just wonder whether they should be combined. Carbon neutrality tools and the yard, the oak tree and the yard, should they be combined? It's only a suggestion, but that will make rather a large group of people.
Yeah, I would be inclined, because of the size of the group, I'd be inclined to keep the two, if that would be all right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Andre?
Yeah, what does Sire think? For me, I agree that it's nice to have 2 rooms if it's a lot of people, but you can join all together and divide there. But to me, it seems better like this. They've already more or less one more focusing on the tools and the other one more focusing on trying to measure. It's related, but I would say as well like this. Okay, so if there are not any more comments, is there any more questions, Willem and Celine, that we need to answer?
There was one question on where do we find the rooms?
Okay, so I'm going to go to where do we find the rooms. So for those of you, if anybody has a problem with the platform, you have received today an email with the links to all the rooms. Otherwise, you just come to the EIP platform, you escape from this meeting or you leave this meeting as soon as we say so. We are about to start in 3 minutes. So, and then you basically come here on the left, on this blue sign. The first one is the plenary that you will leave now. And then we go you go and choose the room. As you choose one of the rooms, for example, the forest, you click join here and you enter the room. Okay, it's as easy as that. If then you want to leave that room, you leave and you go to another room here, the lake, for example. You see? So normally we would have a coffee break between now and the start of the open space, but open space is about replicating coffee breaks. So we're just going to give you 2 minutes of coffee break, and then we're going to the rooms. Is that okay? No? Somebody says no. So we have 5 minutes of coffee break, and we start at 10:35. 7 minutes of coffee break, and we start at 10:35. Is that okay? Yes? Okay, so everybody, yeah? Anybody wants to say something before we go?
10 minutes of coffee, please.
Sorry?
Do we have 10 minutes of coffee break, please?
Italian. Yes. What can I say? I already gave you 7, but okay, we can have 10. The floor is yours. So let's start at 10:40 then. 10 minutes of coffee break. 10:40 we start. Then we have 1 hour of conversation, and then we come back to plenary where we present. Okay. So remember, the floor is yours. Have a great time. This just make sure you also make a report so that everybody learns from what you have been doing. Okay. Have a great time. Have a great meeting. See you soon. To do the same exercise we did yesterday, let's tell the description of what carbon neutrality is. Okay, very shortly again. So I'm going to start. Ask you again to turn on all your cameras. Let's say again what for us is carbon neutrality. So you have 1, 2, 3 words more or less maximum. Okay, carbon neutrality is
local closed cycle systems.
Continuous crop cover.
Resilience.
Less fossil fuels.
Good management.
Internalization of the external costs and benefits in the agricultural system.
Circular economy.
Where I sequester as much as I emit.
Polyculture.
Soil conservation.
Extensification.
One more.
Balancing socio-ecological system.
Socio-ecological systems. Okay, thank you very much. This has been inspiring again. Thank you for building our collective knowledge now on what is carbon neutrality. So it's time for us to check what we have been doing. I'm going to start by sharing my screen again and going to the Padlet where we have the overview of the rooms again. So as we know, we've had 12 rooms. Some of them didn't have any participants and maybe nothing happened there. Some of them were really rich, as we've heard from facilitators. We have a small secret place to talk. So let's hear from the bar. Monica, what happened in the bar? So I'm going to ask each of the, let's say, hosts from these sessions that you present in a maximum of 2 minutes what happened in your room, okay? If you have a report that you want to share, and we have the link for these reports that we can show the report to support you in the discussions. Otherwise, you can just present. So Monica, did you have a conversation? And did you?
Yes, we did have a small conversation. Would you please share my report, because we completed one, and
okay.
Yes, I just added one word to the title, because I think not the question is not use this remote sensing that the better use, because it's already happening. So that was one of the main outcome of our discussion with Lisa, and with Helena visited us. So I think if you go to the conclusion part, I can easily summarize what happened. So there are a lot of good practices, and the main question is not to use tools to force farmers to cooperate, but it's better to use this remote system and big data and artificial intelligence, and to motivate the farmers to support us with their data, because this is the link between a very good picture from the remote system and to use this data to validate and to refine by the farmers. And because it's a budget sensitive technology, it is important somehow to utilize it and to support the farmers with a good analysis and helping hands in managing their farms in a better way with using the remote systems. So that was more or less what we've been discussing. And if somebody is interested in, they can read or report on the discussion.
Okay, we already have one question for you. Who will control the data privacy and sharing?
Most of the countries, like in European initiatives, this is the local authorities, or in Hungary, it's a national authority and the national Hungarian Central Statistic Office Institute, who is collecting the data and taking care of the right use. And you can ask for the data, of course, but only you get which is not against the privacy. And you can use it, of course, for the research or for policy making.
Okay, so thank you very much, Monica. It has been interesting. Let's go to the next room. So the next room was the coffee shop. And there was a conversation there about the elephant in the room, but it just disappeared. So I'm guessing that nobody was there. Nud, can you tell us?
Nobody want coffee, so I went to the meadow.
Okay, so thank you very much for proposing, having the audacity to propose a theme. You didn't make the report yourself on your ideas?
No, I was to another group, and so that's it.
Okay, so thank you anyway. So let's hear from the garden. We had a topic on we need new business models to reward farming systems which are benefit for climate change and other ecosystem services. Kurt, do you want to present us your main conclusions?
Yes, we had a very nice discussion with a lot of people and had some nice new ideas. We need new business models, yes, because farmers, we are not paid for the good things we do to the environment, for the climate. And so we need some way somehow to make a profit of it. And to make, of course, it recognizable for consumers that what we do in the way we produce food, that it can be good for climate. But then the big question is, how can we develop these business model? And you can look at it on a macro level and a micro level. On the macro level, macroeconomical level, yeah, that's the European level. And we see that there are a lot of opportunities there. The common agriculture policy is a huge amount of money which can direct farmers in the right or the wrong direction. But reality is that now, again, for the next 7 years, Europe has chosen to go to the wrong way. And that's a pity, because they had nice ideas in their Green Deal and Farm to Fork strategy. But so we cannot wait for politicians. We need to act ourselves. And then there are a lot of nice ideas about how we can do it. We can do it on a very small level, communicate as a farmer to your customers what you are doing, and then they can be prepared to pay more to you because you do something nice for climate, for biodiversity, and for other ecosystem services. But that's only possible on the micro, very small scale level. How can we make this happen on a more broader level, which can be possible for bigger farms, more conventional farms. And there were some nice examples like biochar, but there's still a lot of question about how can we make it happen. But as an example in Sweden, there are some other examples about how input reduction can result in positive climate effects and be paid off by themselves, because you don't need to buy as much, and then you have a profit by doing these initiatives. Also, like extensive livestock is very interesting to use in direct marketing. There are some ideas inspired by community-supported agriculture, not just selling the product to the consumer, but selling a whole story, selling a whole way of producing a service to the consumer when they buy your product. And we were discussing, would it be interesting to have a label for this or some kind of certification? But if we develop something like that, we need to find something which is more dynamic than just one fixed standard, but a way of promoting good initiatives on farms. How can we do this? Well, doing things like this, coming together, network, talk to each other, is very important, having new ideas. But on the local level, we should associate with each other, farmers with other, with commitments to how can we protect climate. And we need a good catalog of best practices and examples. This is very, very necessary, because you see, we talk about new business models, but we don't have them enough to make the agricultural environment, to change the agricultural environment. So these good examples are very, very important. And maybe we should start the Horizon 2020 project and being financed by that, by EU, for instance.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a very interesting and long and structured report. How many people were there in your session?
It depended from 9 to 12, but I hope someone wrote it down.
Okay, and did you, because you mentioned that you would like maybe to create an Horizon 2020 project, did you already foresee any future meetings with some of the participants or any ideas for future collaboration?
Not yet, and the trouble is I don't have time to discuss more about that, because my cows need to be fed this afternoon, and so I hope somebody else can take over, but don't forget to find me again to develop more.
Okay, very interesting. So is there anybody that would like to ask a question? Somebody that was not there in this meeting, or make any comments? So then, if it's okay, we continue to the next one. So the next one was the forests. Thank you very much, Kurt. The next one is the forest, a group organized by Harry on moving towards carbon neutral, intensive livestock and fast. Harry, would you like to present us your results?
I will try to do so, André. I think we had a very good discussion. Actually, there's a lot possible to reduce emissions. So let me start with that. But we had also a debate, well, is it right to move so fast with reducing emissions? And actually, we think it's not very good to be so fast within 5 years, because then you got a real move of production towards other areas, and then that wouldn't then solve anything for the global climate. In the discussion, I think you really have to make a difference between pigs, for example, at the one hand, where emissions are more methane-based or more manure-based. Oh, I have to, somebody's calling. It's now down. But in the one hand, you have pigs where it is more manure-based, and on the other hand, you have cattle where it is more ruminant-based, enteric fermentation. And then it's very difficult to go to carbon-neutral agriculture, but still a lot is possible. And we talked about possibilities in feed management, circularity, also byproducts of industry, feed additives. Also research is necessary on that. And we also had a discussion about the incentives. It seems like there are hardly or no incentives for farmers in livestock to move so fast or to move anyway. There are some incentives to produce renewable energy, for example, or biogas, but there are not really a lot of incentives to reduce methane or nitrous oxide or the carbon footprint of intensive livestock. So that doesn't help. There are some ideas in some countries we discussed to do taxation on emissions of, in for example, Denmark, we were told, also in the Netherlands, but it's also probably not really a motivation and solving. And we also had a discussion about, should we look at the emissions per kilogram or per hectare? And it's also that emissions per kilogram are very important. And it's not only about emissions per hectare. So I do hope that I give a good overview. So I really would say that enteric fermentation is very difficult, but there are some possibilities.
Okay, thank you very much, Harry. There is hope. So is there any question or comment from the crowd? From everybody here today.
Can I have a question? If because there was this latest one of the things Harry just commented, the discussion on the units per area or per unit production. If some of the people participating in this discussion could resume their arguments from one side or the other,
then maybe Mr. Henning from Denmark might, if I may invite him, because he had a very
good. That would be great.
He had a very good explanation of this point.
Okay, so my point is that I think that it's most relevant to count per kilo, actually, not per hectare. But I also am disappointed by using per kilo counting, because it's not fair to compare 1 kilo of meat, for instance, from poultry production or whatever, with 1 kilo of cabbage, because it does not have the same nutritional value. So in order to feed a population, you need to give them nutrition. And if we want to reduce the greenhouse gas in food production, we should count the greenhouse gas production per some kind of nutritional value. And it's of course much easier to count per kilo, because you can weigh a kilo, but nutritional value, it is a complex of energy and the protein, but also protein quality and fibers and different things here. So it is not easy, but it's really unfair. But there's one additional aspect, and that is the food waste, because generally food waste is 30–40% of the production, but this is more for vegetable products than for animal products. And typically for animal products, you only have a food waste of about 5–10%, whereas for vegetable products, you have maybe 40–50% average food waste. So somehow, of course, we discussed in our group that we should reduce the climate impact from intensive livestock also. But already, if you are producing intensive livestock, you are on the right track, because the climate footprint of intensive production is lower than that of extensive production. And but thereafter, we should also have a fair way of counting, and that is the issue here of per hectare, per kilo. And my point of view, to repeat that, is that we should work for accounting per nutritional value of the food. Thank you.
Thank you. There is always a controversy here on this topic, intensive versus extensive. I think, Anna, if you have any final comment on this, otherwise we go into the next.
Maybe
topic.
we don't have so much time.
Yes,
do we?
I'm a bit afraid that we then don't have time to listen to all the groups, but maybe if we have time,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you very much. So let's hear from the lake. It's a conversation hosted by Juuso on how to incentivize carbon farming in the Common Agricultural Policy. Juuso, the floor is yours.
Yeah, we have a nice group of 9 experts in a lively discussion throughout Europe, which was very nice. And we concluded that both private and public sectors is needed to incentivize carbon farming, especially to achieve this ambitious target of carbon neutrality. And because the CAP funding varies among member countries, so that the power of that is limited, so that could maybe incentivize those multi-beneficial measures and effects of carbon farming, and then carbon markets will come in with additional requirement and additional carbon sequestration. And according to agricultural policy, especially the new period and the renovation, the eco schemes are the tool in the first pillar that could be utilized in carbon farming. We heard nice examples from the Netherlands, for example, that there is already suggestions to include carbon farming into eco schemes, but it's important to ring fence enough money for these eco schemes from the direct payments. And now the discussions varies from 10 to 30%, and then it depends how much money could be targeted into this element. And those countries that has a strong Pillar 2 program, there is more tools to utilize, of course. And the element that should be applied to eco schemes and carbon farming is result-based approach that would in first phase mean that we are maybe not measuring directly the carbon stock changes, instead some proxy of that which is indicating carbon stock increasement, for example, crop cover or something else. But anyway, to bring in that approach already in incoming CAP period would prepare farmers for maybe a bigger change in the next period in 2030. Which is important is that member countries should be engaged to these targets and to utilize eco schemes as effectively as possible. There is risk that they are dewatered with practices that farmers are doing anyway, so they should be efficient. And one important issue is that all these elements and tools should be transparent, both public and private, because in the private carbon markets there is very variable measures and programs currently. There is voluntary markets, which are only agreements between the buyer and seller, and then there is more developed elements and tools that are verified by a third party. And it was asked that maybe there should be one regulated market in the Europe that is certified, and there is not such a mess that there is currently, but it's developing, and at least Mateus told that there is work going on with that. From the technical aspect,
Juuso, you need to try to close, okay?
I will do that. Yes, from the technical aspect, the monitoring, reporting, and verifying tools are needed, but still before those we have the efficient measures that should be adopted immediately. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Juuso. This is definitely a very long topic, a topic that interests everybody, but it's not the main topic of our discussion today. So as we're focusing a little bit more on the knowledge and innovation, as we've mentioned, so I'm not going to give space to open a lot of comments on this because we still have some groups to present. And then if we have time again, we come back to this. So thank you very much. So the next one is how to value carbon sequestration by Carla. Carla Scotti, do you want to present your topic?
Hello. It's a little group, but there is a nice discussion. We share with Knud by Smith and after Obarantes and Eduardo Costantini, it is possible to evaluate carbon sequestration in the soil if we have a good method of sampling. For example, there is a official European Soil Bureau that proposes an important method. And we share the different experience for farmer. Knud Bay Smith is a farmer in Denmark. And I explained the experience in Emilia-Romagna region where there is a public tool where the information of organic matter, carbon sequestration, and another analysis is connected with soil map, and the farmer can use this tool for fertilization to know the health of their soil. I'm sorry for my English is not very well. But this is the this is the message. Is important now the carbon. It's important to know the carbon sequestration connected with the kind of the soil. If we have the rocks in the 1 meter or no, for example, change with soil management. And we think is important a participatory method to share the evaluation of carbon sequestration, where together work farmer, researchers, but also public institutions. And because this is our experience and it is possible to evaluate carbon sequestration. I hope I'm clear and thank you for attention.
Very clear. Thank you very much, Carla. We are all, like I was saying, from different countries, so we speak international English, not the perfect English, so don't worry about that. Also for the next presenters, I'm going again to pass to the next, and if we have time, we can then have a little bit round of questions for all the teams. So the next one is the oak tree, where there was a discussion on carbon neutrality tools. This meeting was proposed by Sire, who had several difficulties. So I don't know if Sire, but there was 17 people that wanted to be there.
It's Dave that will do the presentation. We did have a good discussion and we tried to record as much as possible. So I hope Sire will have some use of the report, but Dave kindly agreed to report.
Okay, thank you very much, Wilhelmina. Dave, the floor is yours, 2 minutes.
Okay, well, thanks, Wilhelmina. Wilhelmina chaired the session and did a very good job keeping lots of notes. And it was a very vibrant discussion. There were about 15 people in the session, 3 farmers, some researchers, and kind of public authority representatives. So we looked at the need for tools at farm level, and really we tried to think about what the purpose of those tools were. So we thought that there are actually different types of tools that we need. Firstly, we need tools that can be used by farmers to make decisions, and therefore it's very important that these tools aren't necessarily super precise at capturing all the emissions at the farm level, but are very much related to management practices, so that a farmer can identify which practices they can implement in order to reduce their emissions at farm level. But then we need another level of tools, which is very important for improving policy and improving and refining how we determine those measures that mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. And that's where we need perhaps more precision. So we have different types of tool, and the latter type isn't needed on all farms, just some representative samples of farms. And the decision support tools are the tools that all farmers should have access to. It's very important to consider how these tools might be used in carbon markets for carbon taxes or carbon incentives, but it might not always be relevant to say that we should be achieving carbon neutrality at farm level. We might think about a district level, or like the Water Framework Directive, we could think about a watershed level or a catchment level, and it might be relevant for farmers to collaborate within these regions to achieve carbon neutrality. So that this is particularly important for livestock farms who have a lot of emissions that might be better offset elsewhere in the landscape if they're very efficient at producing what they produce at the farm. It's very important. We talked about harmonization and the real challenge of having harmonized tools across Europe because of very different agroclimatic conditions. That's going to be very difficult, but what's very important is that we have a connection and a harmonization between farm and national level reporting within member states, because that's how we have coherence in our farm level and our national level budgeting and accounting for greenhouse gas emissions. We also know that we're not going to get the right answer immediately if we try to relate tools to practices in the decision support tools we talk about. So if we try and relate greenhouse gas emissions to practices, the knowledge is imperfect. And therefore, it's important that we have these living labs and continuous monitoring of certain farms to see how various practices affect emissions long term. And we need to support these farmers long term. So it's not just about giving a payment in a year or having a tax in a particular year, but supporting measures being implemented sometimes for decades if we're trying to increase soil carbon. There's a very nice example from France that Katia and Catherine presented, where farmers are actually, there are detailed tools used at farm level to measure performance, and then farmers can sell their credits, their mitigation credits, to private buyers such as schools or other organizations who wish to buy carbon to offset their own emissions. That was a very positive example. And finally, we came to the idea that there's a danger that if we reward farmers for implementing new practices to mitigate, there's a risk that we penalize farmers that are already doing well. And so somehow we need to recognize and reward farmers that do well at the beginning of any monitoring periods also. So we don't create a fear for farmers to move too soon because they miss out on future rewards. And perhaps a very final point, the idea that consumers are responsible for driving a lot of emissions with choices, and maybe food is too cheap, and does carbon accounting at farm level feed through to a way that consumers maybe pay a carbon tax on the food they eat, or maybe some consumers, a minority, might be willing to pay a premium for carbon neutral food. So those are some of the main points that we covered in the oak tree discussion.
Thank you so much, David. It was super clear, super interesting, super relevant. Thank you so much. Let's hear from another interesting group for sure, the orchard place where you met. I hope there was nice fruit over there. Sorry about the joke. Contribution of perennial fruit trees and orchards to mitigate climate change. So, Corina, do you want to present your topic in 2 minutes?
Eduardo Costantini will do, I think, because Corina, I think, is not in the room now. Corina, are you around? No.
Is there anybody else?
Okay, so actually the room suddenly broke down, so we were interrupted in our very interesting conversation. We started acknowledging that the orchard and tree crops in general may play a bigger role than row crops for reaching carbon neutrality, since tree may stay for many years in the field, and so they are accumulating carbon, not only in the trunk, but also in stems. So this is a very important assumption. Then we acknowledge that there are so many knowledge gaps in the management of tree crops that must be studied to find the best practical solution to reduce emission and increase carbon capture, and at the same time improving soil health and yield. So there are a lack of knowledge, practical knowledge, to conveyed to the farmers. There are so many examples around in Europe, but not a systematic review of this example. For instance, how much fertilizer can be saved by a different kind of grass or cover crop management? What is the most convenient time and height of cutting to preserve biodiversity in permanent grass cover or also in cover crops? For instance, we know that there are birds which have their nest, but also arthropods, and by using different techniques, you can affect biodiversity in a way or in another way. Then we have the selection of tree variety, the rootstocks, not only for the yield, but also for the carbon sequestration. And the relationship that you can find in between the agronomic practices like cultivation, partial cultivation, total cultivation, or no cultivation of the orchard, and other practices like fertilization, weed control, irrigation, pruning. So finally, we say that there are rooms here for operational groups and also for a focus group possibly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. Super interesting also. Thank you so much. Let's hear then, we have to go to the next room. River, I think there was only one person there or not. Let's hear from Anna, very shortly.
No, there was nobody.
Ah, there was nobody, so there was you.
Okay, don't worry. Yes, okay.
Do you want to make a report? Did you make a report or not? There was no discussion.
No, nothing. I just left my email address if anybody wanted to talk. Just want using the water as a new source for a carbon neutral for agriculture. That's all. Okay,
so thank you very much for proposing a topic and staying there for some time. Let's hear now from the stables where there was another discussion. The impact of new fertilizers regulation to carbon neutrality of farms. It stays good in the stables, the fertilizers. So Zoltan, I don't know if you were there, because it appears that you were not here at a certain point. Is there anybody that was in this room?
I was there alone.
Okay.
No Zoltan. Yeah.
It's a pity. Okay, thank you very much, Liri. So let's hear from the final one in the yard. If you can't measure, you can't manage. John. The floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Very good.
So our journey was around how you personalize the carbon neutral journey to get a net farm position for each farm. On the principle, if you can't measure, how do you expect farmers and land managers to actually change their practice and accelerate to net zero? The approach is based around measuring and monitoring carbon stocks at an individual farm level using a combination of LiDAR technology, ortho imaging, and carbon soil sampling, and then coming back and remeasuring that every 5 years so that you can check that the factors, the emission factors, the sequestration factors that you've been using in your annual calculators are actually correct, and that the change in carbon stocks are being properly reflected, having this 5-year check and balance in the system. We also demonstrated then, once you have this knowledge, you can actually empower farmers to look at, for example, if you had more livestock on your farm, what would happen? If you had less livestock on your farm, what would happen? And also to inform what other mitigation and sequestration tools were in the toolbox. The information coming out of that was that this was a very accurate way of doing it, but an expensive way of doing it. And we felt there was a possible approach to eliminating double counting, that if the government could be, or CAP could be persuaded to fund the measuring, that actually in repayment to that public money investing in actually doing this detailed, that the first amount of carbon that the farm saves actually goes back to the government so that the government can use it to reduce the national inventory. And only then, after you have produced enough for the government to do that, do you have a surplus that you could sell in a trading scheme we're very worried about double counting and the need to have one framework where both the public need and the private need is actually talking to each other and eliminating double counting. The main conclusions from this is that it was felt that this would be great to set up in a network of farms like lighthouses, which would be like the reference farms, and that this could help peer-to-peer farmer learning and empower farmers to engage and make better quality decisions. It would also be great if the technology could be refined enough so that it monitored co-benefits. For example, the improvement on the quantity of habitats. Could we use it also, the same technology, to show how soil and nutrient leaves a farm and runs into water courses to improve water. And it also allows then both information for farmers and policymakers about how best to continue to refine this as we go on this journey. We don't have all the answers at the moment. There are knowledge gaps, but this allows us to fill knowledge gaps, to do it in a transparent way so that both policymakers, the marketplace, and concerned consumers can be reassured that it's been done to MRV, to measuring, reporting, and validation standards that the international community would expect from us.
Thank you very much, John. It's been a privilege to hear you and also all the other rapporteurs. Thank you so much for all your very well synthesized reports, super interesting discussions, super relevant discussions. We are now reaching the end of our workshop that lasts 1.5 days. And this was definitely very interesting conversations that we had. I would like maybe to ask Anna now to make a review, a small synthesis, a personal comment on how do you see this reflections on the knowledge and innovations, the need for knowledge and innovation for carbon neutrality, and maybe even the overall of all these reflections that we've had in this last 1.5 days. Anna.
Okay, I think we will next do that, a bit of that reflection together also, but I can give my reflection right away. So, well, I think I was noticing today that besides looking at the needs, we also identified good practices during this period. I mean, things that were already tested and implemented and that we were able to share with each other. And this was an important point, an important aim of our workshop also. Then I think it was really interesting to see during today that there were clear ideas for projects. There were direct invitations to collaborate. I heard that when going through the different groups, and there were proposals for research projects. So that's really nice to see also. I also noticed that there was clearly identified different needs to collaborate. For instance, to collaborate to research, needs for research, such as benchmarking or on new business models. We heard here in plenary some participants proposing an Horizon 2020 project on identifying business models. We had also, I personally struck me great ideas to move forward in carbon neutrality in agriculture, such as at which level could this be accounted? We heard just now, you remember in my presentation yesterday, I was showing you some examples of accounting at farm level, which were not carbon neutral. They were showing efforts towards carbon neutrality. But what if farm level is not actually the most interesting level? What if we look at regional level or watershed level, like it was proposed just now? I thought it was really interesting. And then also from today, I noticed that we moved forwards in some of the discussions, like we had here concrete proposals about how the carbon neutrality tools that we need, how they could look like in more detail. So these are just some examples that I found really interesting. And I mean, if it was during these 1.5 days, it was our hope that the discussions were useful for you. But I would also like to thank you for your efforts reporting, because the aim is that we harvest your discussions, your proposals, and in order to make them available behind this workshop. So thank you very much for that, and I'm really hoping to be able to do that.
Thank you very much, Anna. So yeah, I was inverting a little bit this pace of reflection. You were supposed to do this in the very end, but I thought that we needed this because there was so much information. Your summary now was really helpful for us to reflect and integrate all of these inputs and knowledge and suggestions and outcomes and ideas from the groups. So everybody, now it's really the finishing of our event. We have until 1 o'clock to finalize, and we are a lot of people. So we would like to hear from you a little bit, just like we did on counting from 1 to 10. We can all speak without showing hands, a little bit like if we were a lot of corn in a pot doing popcorns. So one popcorn jumps at a time. So I would like to invite you to be a popcorn and share your ideas now. And the question that we would like to pose you basically to end this event is actually, what are the final reflections or the main messages that you take home? What are the last things that you would like to share with all? What are you going to say to your colleagues or to your family or to your fellow farmers about this event when you go home? Was there anything that inspired you in this workshop for taking action, and what kind of action? And tomorrow, when you're back at your usual work, what are you going to do differently? Okay, so of course you cannot answer all of these questions. It's an invitation for you to share your final words with the plenary. We are all here together, and we have a few minutes for this. So thank you everybody for being here. Now the floor is yours.
We can do this, but we have to do it together. That's what I take with me.
We are not alone as farmers.
We have a long distance to go, but we are on the right way.
You don't have to be so brief as a popcorn bursting. You can take a little bit more time if you want.
We need strategic involvement of the regulator in line with net zero by 2050. Yeah, that's my popcorn.
Yeah.
I can. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. We need to encourage farmer community when they want to move forward, and we need to have a strong involvement of member state administration, especially agriculture ministry, to be aware what is going on the spot.
I can say that also research is important to understand, and that's why we were in the group, in the Oak Tree group, and we were discussing, for example, that we should have two different tools. One is the decision support tool that can help to choose which is the best practices to apply, and then a real tool that can help to measure when indeed the farmer is applying the practices. And the other discussion that we had was about the level, the scale of applicability of carbon neutrality that should be at farm level or at rural district level. So I think that these 2 points are very interesting, and we can try to better explore also. We are at CMCC, the institution where I work as a researcher is in Italy. We are working on this, and I'm here to say that if someone wants to collaborate and try to develop these 2 ideas all together, we can try to make a network of research and try to apply also for Horizon 2020 as well. So I'm here to collect ideas also from your side. And sorry, I'm with my baby. So thank you.
Thank you, Maria, very much. Thank you, Maria. Anybody else wants to pick up on this family mood and continue?
Well, I want to take up the farmer mood, because what we need leaving here is to show we have a long way to go, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. But we also, one of the areas we didn't touch on today, are what are the cultural barriers to farmers changing their behavior. We launched, most countries published a thing called the marginal abatement cost curve for mitigating greenhouse gases, some of them 8-10 years ago. And a lot of the industry has still to take those up, even though they are profit making. What are the barriers? What are the cultural barriers? And I think we do need to understand the cultural barriers in the farming community, why they're not taking up some of these options that improve the profits of their business.
If I may add, André. Yeah, I would like to add that for me, John is right, but it seems like the challenges in our countries are like almost the same. We all have different cultures, of course, in Europe, but I think the challenge on climate is very much alike. When you discuss it with people from other countries, it really feels familiar, and it's about, yeah, how do we make this change? And I think that's also what John means.
Thank you. We have still a few minutes, so
Yes.
final reflections. What do you think?
If I may, André, I was very happy with these 2 days. It was quite inspiring seeing all those nice examples, and we had that interesting idea in our breakout group on the business model is to create some kind of a Horizon 2020 or another European finance project on finding out the best good practices on new business models about carbon farming and other ecosystem services in Europe. So I would be happy if people could send me an email who is interested in developing something like that, yeah, then we can try to make something of it and making more than just these 2 days, but making a nice project of it. So send me an email who is interested in it, and then we can see what we can do with it. You can find all the emails, I think, of all the participants in the participant list.
Thank you, Kurt. I think Jacopo wanted to speak. Thank you very much.
Okay. So as a farmer, I have the consciousness that we have a lot of weight on our shoulder also after this meeting, but I think we can hardly and deeply collaborate in the creation of a system where like knowledge and innovation on this topic on carbon farming involve us as farmer, but also citizen, politician in an approach that can include a lot of different criteria for the food productions that keep the level of ecosystem services high.
Thank you, Jacopo. Just 1 or 2 or 3 more people, and then we close. Before I give the word to Anna, to Bea, the task manager of all this event. Go.
Yes, I just have a short comment, and it's for Kurt. Maybe Kurt, you can leave a post on the harbor, and people can add there their emails, because some people is asking for your email now. So maybe you can use the harbor for it.
And where is the harbor?
We can share the link. It's in the platform as well, but we can share the link as well here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can share the screen very quickly. On the left, again, on the left of the platform, the harbor has this megaphone sign. You click there, and you leave ideas, projects, knowledge, and so on. Okay. So finally, one or two comments more just to finalize. Anna has raised her hand.
Yes, thank you. I think one of the big takeaways for me is that we still have quite a bit of work to do in terms of measuring simultaneously the climate and ecosystem impacts. And that's very key to make sure also that we reduce trade-offs, any trade-offs that we might have with climate mitigation practices. And I would just also like to add that yesterday the carbon farming guidance was mentioned. We co-authored this guidance and also a report that might be useful to those participating. I suspect that, well, what we've heard is that it will be published in April, but maybe also the EIP organizers here could share that link and inform people when that becomes available, because it might be a useful resource. Thanks.
Thank you. Bea, was this clear, the request?
Yes.
Okay. So, José raised his hand. José.
Yes. I want to share with you a remark yesterday from John, because it touched me, and that's one of the things that I will keep in mind. He said that as a farmer, that he was sometimes he felt guilty because all the pressure of society. And this is what I keep in mind, because I think the effort of all is really to fill that gap, because farmers should not feel guilty. And this turns me to another question that I hope that in the future farmers are able to communicate better to the whole society, because these guilty feelings, they should not exist.
Thank you very much, José. This was a very interesting comment to finalize our event today. Also, working and implementing actions towards carbon neutrality could also be a pleasure and not a weight. So we can maybe work with these two things together. So it's time for us to finalize our event. We have two things that we would still like to do. One is an evaluation where we'd like you to answer some small poll with 4 or 5 questions. And the last one is to hear from Kirsten Rosenau. Kirsten in European Commission in DG-AGRI is the head of research and innovation, and she's the head of the very EIP-AGRI, who is organizing this one and so many of these super interesting events. So it will be a real pleasure to have her close this event and give it also some meaning again to its continuation. So before we go in, I would also like to say that from my side, it has been really a privilege and an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. You are a very interesting group of people that has so much knowledge. Together, these reflections were really fertile, and I hope this fertility generates more fertility and more carbon neutrality throughout Europe. So thank you so much for contributing, for participating actively, for generating these so very interesting reflections and contributions together. I want to highlight that we just had a conversation with 73 participants in plenary without any moderation. You were able to moderate yourselves. So it's an amazing group of people. So having said that, thank you very much from my behalf. I would like now to invite you to go to the poll. So how do we do this? Again, by sharing the screen, I will show you where we're going to. We are still in the platform, and on the right, we have our poll. So these vertical bars on the right that says 6 have 6 questions. So now we're going to give you a few minutes, 3, 4, maximum 5 minutes for you to fill in these questions. And we're going to put some landscape sounds while you reflect and evaluate this event. Okay? So see you back. Don't leave. Just answer this and see you back in 5 minutes. Okay, maybe we can see the evaluation question 1 and we can make a short review. So, has the workshop brought you any new practical ideas to make farming and forestry more carbon neutral that you would like to test and promote? 25% of you said several. 56% said yes, a few. Some, 9% said not sure if these ideas would work in my region and farm. One person said no, and 2 people said not relevant. So this was definitely contributing already. So the second question, have you shared any ideas or examples that will help farms to take up carbon neutral agriculture? 40% said yes, I believe I made a very significant and relevant contribution. 53% they consider they have contributed, and 6% it was more learning. So I think this was very fertile for everybody. So thank you all for all your roles. The third question, have you met new people or projects with whom you would like to exchange after the workshop? So 56% of people say yes, I would like to contact them to know more. So this is a challenge. If you have any challenge in doing this, you can use the platform, as you know, on your phone or on the website. You can use the harbor. If you have any challenge on this, please contact EIP and we will try to facilitate these future contacts. Okay. The fourth question. Overall, how satisfied are you with the usefulness of this workshop? So everybody says very satisfied and satisfied. So thank you very much for that. And the next question, there is a question here, will the harbor be available after the workshop? Yes, it will be available for today. And after that, the results will be published in the report. Fifth question, no, the final question. I know this is the format. Overall, how satisfied are you with the format and organization of this online workshop? So 44% very satisfied and 55 satisfied. And these are only 27 votes, so we may assume that some of you did not answer. Let's see the final question. Overall, did you feel you had enough opportunity to engage with other people? Yes, very much so, 72%, and yes, but I would like a little bit more time or opportunity, 28%. So thank you very much. I think we can stop seeing now the screen of evaluation. We can definitely see this was fertile for you and also very positive for you as it was for the organization. So on my behalf, is now time to give the words to Kirsten Rosenau. I already presented to you. She's the dear lead of EIP-AGRI and also the lead of Research and Innovation Unit in DG-AGRI. Kirsten, the floor is yours now to give the closure to this workshop. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks a lot, Andre, for this very kind introduction, also making me feel even more responsible for what we do in the future. So I've listened to a great part of your discussions today and yesterday, and indeed this was incredibly rich. So it was a really impressive amount of innovation already happening all over the EU. And I think it shows that many of you as farmers and foresters and helping the land managers in this area really are already contributing on a day-to-day basis to reach our climate goals and to our commitments. Indeed, I heard one of the testimonies. I think there's no reason to feel guilty. On the contrary, there's a lot of reasons to feel really proud of what we already have there. And we listened very carefully to the many success stories. So this is really important for us also, let's say at the more bureaucratic level working day to day in the context of designing research or legislation and so on. It's important to hear that and take that forward to make sure we do the right designing. I don't believe it's too late for the Common Agricultural Policy, by the way, but okay, let's see. So these impressive examples that we have from the organic certified vineyard in Spain using zero external inputs, also the crop farm in Estonia testing various innovations in collaboration with researchers. So here we go. That was really showed us that you work really hard already in getting your innovations applied on the field and on the forest, but also share it with others. So we heard about concrete farming practice. So yesterday I was impressed by all these examples: no tillage, drilling, cover crops, which cover crops, catch crops would be most adapted, and so on, that can help agriculture become more climate neutral. That some of you already make use of the possibility that digital technologies can provide. This is something where it's again very often there is the perception that farming is not the first area that comes in mind, but on the contrary, I believe that in the area that we work, we can make most progress actually by using and further extending those technologies in the future. And also it was good to hear that many of you are already collaborating with other actors to develop and test your innovations. So that's great, but now what have we heard about the challenges and obstacles? And this is really what we also as policymakers, research makers and legislation makers have to take home and work further on. So you have identified that you need clear recommendations on management practices, methods and techniques that work in your specific areas, and also I suppose the advice that goes with that. So how to increase soil fertility, how to use cover crops and so on more efficiently. You miss the opportunity to exchange your knowledge and experience with other farmers and other actors. So more connections also between different actors. So that's something that we can directly cater for at European level, but also at local and member state level that need to be in first. Then measurement. So again, we've heard it from John, and reporting have come across as key aspects to address. And that's also interesting because as we had our workshop here, at the global level, there was the annual gathering of the Global Research Alliance on climate. And DG Agri has recently become party of that. And there it was interesting to hear what they do. By the way, they also develop syllabi and calculation methods that can be further used. But it's true that that's an area which is key and where we have to see. I heard the plea for funding for this. So in this regard, the Commission is working on improving monitoring tools for land-based removals. So we really have to see how we take that forward. Then there was the ensuring farm profitability against good carbon management. That's really key. We've seen some of your examples, but I think it's really key to see if we look at the importance of looking at carbon issues in farming with a holistic perspective. So what do we need, and what are the new business models, and how can we ensure that farmers with all these challenges still make a living while looking after climate and environment and providing ecosystem services, as many of you do and have told us. You have emphasized the need for policies and the market to support beneficial farming systems, and also the importance of education. I think this is like really a key issue. When we work now, for instance, on the mission for soil health, this is also soil literacy in schools, out there, in gardens, in whatever, even citizens literacy. So same thing is for carbon and carbon farming. I think we really have to do more on that. And there we also have a role to play at the European level to improve these things. So what you really have highlighted is the need to address local challenges with local solutions, and bringing farmers, researchers and actors together, co-constructing these solutions. And this is really good that at the moment we're negotiating the support for that and a better support under the CAP. And I think we're making advances there. And let me say that the needs you have identified and the possible ways to address those all resonate well with our vision for the new R&I program Horizon Europe. So we take home to the drawing board those ideas that you have come up with. And also my colleagues that work on the soil mission and on the agroecology living labs partnership will take due account of that and make sure that we can build this already in from the start, many things that you have done. So I think it will be productive from everybody's side. But it is clear that all these challenges cannot be addressed with only one tool. No? So advisory service, we have to reinforce. We're working on it. The EIP-AGRI will in the future be reinforced. We have tried to get away with some of the bureaucratic obstacles that we have for the operational groups. There will be a lot in the new period coming on to make hopefully the work that many of you do, also making the work you do together with the researchers, easier on the ground, for instance, with advances we can pay. So many concrete things that you really know. And we also are happy that now for the CAP we have the cross-cutting objective on knowledge exchange and innovation, which will also mean that there will be a stronger emphasis in orienting the future CAP strategic plans. So I hope that I have made clear that my ears were very open, and not only mine, but also those of the colleagues, to take this home and effectively build it in. We will stay in contact with many of you because there are things to follow up, which is clear, and we want to work further on this, and we will bring this to even more use that we already had today. So we had pioneer farmers, researchers, advisors, all of us coming and sitting around on a virtual table today. Incredible. If somebody would have told us that 2 years ago that we can do this so well, I don't think that anybody would have believed it. So the context is not ideal, but we made the best of it. So I want to thank all of you, the moderators, so Andre and Anna, but also all of you, because you've moderated parts of this. Also the Service Point for making all of this possible to get together. And we look very much forward. We have enjoyed this very much, and we will see you soon, virtually or hopefully physically, some of you also on the fields and out in the forest. So thanks a lot for this. And this is the formal closing.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. There's no more need for words. Thank you, everybody. The floor is closed. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Lunch, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.